chip strategy and big picture thinking for the 22-23 season on FPL. I'm joined today by FPL Salah, and he is the expert who's going to talk us through how we should be looking at this season and why it's maybe a little bit different from others and why there's a few extra considerations. Abdul, welcome back to the channel.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me on.
No, I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this. There's loads of interesting stuff to talk about. Yeah. We'll start with the wild card, then we'll move on to the chips and a few other things. So basically, talk to me about the wild card this year and why maybe it's a bit different than how we viewed it in previous seasons.
Yeah, so as you know, John, in typical season, we get the two wild cards, and we typically use, the second wild card a few weeks before, game week 20, about January time. This season obviously is a bit different because we've got the World Cup. We need to use it before game week 16. So the way this is kind of worked out is that, usually you'd say, an FPL season is a marathon. But I think this season, it's I would classify it as like a series of sprints, because we need to use the first wild card by game week 16. You're probably better, setting up, your game week 1 team, say maybe the first 8 or 10 fixtures maximum, and then using your first wild card in that. So we can afford to be a bit more aggressive this season, I think. With our game week 1 teams and how we approach the season. So we don't have to kind of think as long term as we do. So setting up for the first 8 to 10 game weeks, using the wild card, and then setting up for once you use the first wild card, setting up from game week 9 to 16. So again, it's only like another 7 game weeks. So game week 16 is when we break off for the World Cup. So I think, with that, it might be a kind of a lot to kind of digest. But I think, initially just think about setting up your game week 1 team from game week 1 to 8, and then using your wild card after that, up until the World Cup. I think that's as far as we should be thinking at the moment. And but I think one thing we need to have in our heads is that this is going to be a different season in terms of how we set up our game week 1 teams. We can be a bit more aggressive, we can be a bit more kind of forward thinking.
I suppose I just want to double back down on it, and I think as we're coming up to the game week 1, and maybe we'll have you back at some stage later in the season to talk about optimising those later chips, but for now I think the only chip people should be considering, or at least have on their mind, is maybe that first wild card. And why it might allow you to play differently, you've already mentioned it, is you can kind of go balls to the wall this season. You can be aggressive. In seasons gone by, doing that, you risk the early wild card, which some people love, and it's fine popping your wild card in game week 3 or 4. In seasons gone by, I've done it, and actually the best season I ever had, it worked a dream. But it's not necessarily the best play, and this season maybe we'll see a bit more of it because of that freedom of the World Cup, the freedom that it will actually give us. So this is Hub's ticker. This is the first 8 game weeks, and over those 8 game weeks, with Man City, Liverpool, Spurs and Chelsea, then Arsenal coming in best in terms of attacking fixtures. In terms of defensive, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Spurs and Arsenal again. So overall, these guys have got decent fixtures. Brighton also come in very highly when you take both stats into account. Brentford as well, and Leeds are actually okay, strangely, because they've got Wolves, Everton, Brentford, Nottingham over the first, Brighton as well over the first 8. Yeah. But my point here is we can really target these teams for the first 8 weeks, and don't forget we're going to rack up 8 transfers in that time as well. So you can really aggressively go after the start of this season, try and maximise points, maximise rank, and then start all again, as you said, 9 to 16, and then you have the wild card, or it's in inverted commas, wild card of the World Cup. Yeah. So that is exciting that you kind of have that in the back. It's kind of made me feel a little bit more aggressive than seasons gone by, as you've said, and I think that is a big switch in strategy this season that is very unique, and we need to just buy into it and have some fun. Yeah,
for sure. As I said, it's going to be a bit different to normal seasons, and we need to kind of adapt to this season. It's going to, as you said, it's going to be different. And the good thing about you mentioned those teams, John, with the City, Brentford, Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, Leeds, who have got all great fixtures up until game week 8 or 9. The likes of Arsenal, Brighton, Leeds and Man U, their fixtures take a bit of a turn in game week 9. So if you set the ticker to game week 9 to 16, you'll see that. So they're all players that we'll have in our teams. A lot of people will have double Arsenal. We'll have probably a lot of guys will have Sanchez in goal, or Meslier. Rashford and Sancho seem to be picking up steam as well. So we're going to be having a lot of these players whose fixtures kind of take a downturn. So it's not only a good type of wild card because it's an international break. The fixture swings are there as well. And then you've got teams like Palace, West Ham, Fulham, Leicester, Bournemouth, all who his fixtures, pick up massively from game week 9 to 16. So, the likes of Palace, we can go for the defenders. West Ham, Bowen comes into consideration. I don't think he's going to be very popular to start the season because they have got a few tough games, but their fixtures from game week 9 to 16 are, phenomenal. You've got Fulham, so Mitrovic comes into the picture. I think he's going to be a popular option. I think he's going to be the best 6.5 million forward in the game. But again, if you look at Fulham's fixtures from game week 1 to 8, it's, they couldn't have really asked for a tougher run. But from game week 9, great fixtures. Same for Leicester, likes of Maddison, Vardy, James Justin in defence, whatever. And then by then we'll kind of have a good idea of the Bournemouth assets as well. So yeah, so it seems like it seems really well set up for us, John. The way it's set up, and I think it's going to be, I think if you're switched on, and if you're looking at the fixtures and the fixture swings, you can really take advantage of that from game week 1 to game week 16 before the World Cup when we use our wild cards.
Yeah, like, so the people who come into the game and aren't really paying attention to the finer details, the guys from the office who sign up for a few weeks and give up, they mightn't be strategizing about this, and this is where people who are watching content and actively engaged at this time of the season can get their edge. When you're looking at this and you don't need to be thinking about getting a Bournemouth asset in for this run of fixtures 9 to 16 on your transfers. Save your transfers to attack the first 8 weeks, then pivot for this set of fixtures with your wild card. And when you know that's happening, you can be even more aggressive with those transfers through the first quarter of the season. And as you say, I think it's a really exciting thing for the year, and I think it could be a really fun kind of spectacle for FPL, where the first 8 weeks will look completely different from this set of fixtures here. These 8 fixtures, whenever you've got Bournemouth top of the list here, maybe Solanke comes into contention, maybe Zaha's looking like a good shout, maybe, as you said, Bowen, maybe Antonio, maybe some of those West Ham guys, maybe someone sets themselves apart in defence as an assist asset on set pieces. Fulham, will Mitrovic be a better choice? If he's picked up 3-4 goals by this point in the season, maybe we hit it hard from 9 to 16. So yeah, no, I really like it. I think everyone will inevitably come out the bat. I say we'll be aggressive, but they'll come out with this template team. But you can be a bit ballsier with transfers to target fixtures over those first weeks, knowing the wild card's inbound. But look, we've talked enough about the wild card for now. As I said, late season we'll talk about that a lot more in the channel, so do subscribe if you're here. We're going to talk quickly about the subs, and then we're going to get into the rest of the chips. There's obviously 5 subs this season, which is a bit different, and I think the thing I wanted to ask you is, will that impact how you play the game at all?
I don't think it'll impact, have a big effect of how I play the game or my team, but I think what we need to kind of take into consideration is that the 5 subs will have an effect. How much? Yeah, we don't know, but will have an effect on our benches. I think because obviously when if one of our starting 11 gets benched, the chance of him coming on for a 1-pointer is going to be a lot more than it was when you had the 3 sub rule. So maybe we need to spend a bit less on our benches this season. Our bench positions probably don't have to be as strong. I think last season we spent a lot on our benches because of the fact of we had all the kind of COVID postponements, etc. Especially around Christmas time. I don't think we'll kind of need to go that deep into the bench this season. I think we can get away with maybe like a 4 million midfielder, a 4.5 million defender, and 4.5 million midfielders, and also a 4 million goalkeeper. I think that should be fine. I think as long as you've got maybe 2 playing subs, who get kind of 90 minutes regularly, or semi-regularly, I think you should be fine. Yeah, so I think usually we set up our teams in that way anyway, where we have kind of a cheap bench. But yeah, I just think we need to be kind of more aware that we might have a lot more kind of players being kind of subbed on, which means that our benches aren't as useful as they have been in past seasons.
Does this make teams like Man City more desirable or less desirable? It's this horrible thing where, Pep Roulette, we never know who's going to play. We have an idea who's going to play, but does this mean that even if you pick a Mahrez, for example, we know how dangerous he can be with 30 minutes off the bench? So, like, maybe it makes those players in a really dominant side of Man City, I could be talking out of my arse, it's either one or it's the other, I don't know which. It makes them less desirable because they're more likely to get subbed off at the start, but it makes them more desirable because they could come on. If I told you any Man City player you pick is going to get 45 minutes, is that better than telling you there's a 50% chance they get this and then there's a chance they don't even play? Does it make those players like your Grealishes and your Mahrezes and your whoever else's viable because they're more likely to play, or is it a killer because they're more likely to be subbed? Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, as I said, a bit of both, because at the moment we don't know how each manager is going to be, how he's going to play with those 5 subs, what kind of, it could be the case that, some managers don't even use the full 5 subs. They only kind of they do the usual 3 and then maybe keep 2 for an injury or something like that. So we could even it could even be the case that it doesn't really make a difference at all. We just need to wait and see. And I know we had this kind of 5 sub rule during the COVID year, and from what I remember, it didn't make a huge difference to how things were, but this is different now because obviously it's an actual rule now. It's actually a rule going forward, and managers have had time to they're gonna have time to kind of strategize of how they're gonna pick their kind of starting 11s and who they're gonna have on the bench because they know they've got the 5 sub rule. So yeah, it's just one of those, John. I think we kind of need to wait and see. I think by game week, maybe 10 and 12, we'll kind of know what each manager is like in terms of how he utilises the 5 subs.
If you're thinking about signing up the Hub, there isn't a better time. There's currently 50% off. If you click the link in the description, you will get that 50% off. I think that's right up to the game week 1 deadline. Date to be confirmed, but there's never been a better time. Abdul, let's talk about chips. So we've got 3 main chips we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about them for everyone. Now, all of these, as you've already mentioned earlier in the video, are more for the latter part of the season. We can strategize, we can talk about them as much as we want now, but ultimately everything's going to change. Now, the Ben Crellin's FPL Planner, which you can get if you sign up to Fantasy Football Hub, it is probably the go-to place for planning fixtures later into the season because Ben knows his stuff. But let's talk about free hits and general strategy with free hits and how they're usually played.
Yeah, so in terms of free hits, John, they're typically better used in blank game weeks. For those who don't know, a blank game week is a game week in which we have only maybe 4 or 5 fixtures because of postponements due to the FA Cup and Carling Cup. Usually, it's hard to kind of navigate around these game weeks with free transfers. So, saving the free hit, for that blank game week means that we can, keep our best players. We don't have to kind of get rid of our players like Salah's and your Kanes because they miss one game. You can just play your free hit and get those players back the following game week. So this season, the blank game weeks are the ones which are kind of confirmed at the moment are in game week 25, 28 and 32.
Yeah, that's the thing with the free hits. They've pulled me out of holes many a time where you've got this week coming up, you don't really want to optimize and burn all your transfers trying to bring players in so you can field the team, but the free hit up the sleeve for one of these blank game weeks that you need it most. I mean, this will be very much later season strategy that we get into then on the channel, but it's definitely worth talking about. Do not, if you're new to the game, pump out your free hit in one of the first weeks. You're seriously hamstringing yourself later in the season. Next up, we've got 2 that you typically play almost the other way around, where the free hit you're targeting blanks. For the bench boost and the triple captain, you'd be targeting the doubles. Do we talk about that?
Yeah. So basically, since the chips have been introduced, John, I've used my chips and I've used my triple captain, my bench boost in the double game weeks, simply because obviously with the double game week, you've got statistically a better chance of your chip paying off. With a bench boost, if you go 15 double game week players, you've got 30 games there. With the triple captain, obviously, you've got 2 bites at the cherry. So as you know, it's better to have two tickets to the lottery than one. Statistically, it's a better time to use it. That's not to say that I can't work well in a single game week, but this is a game of numbers. It's a game of stats. So I would say save your bench boost and your triple captain for the double game weeks. Again, so the double game weeks this season are going to be in game week 29, game week 34 and game week 37. Of course, there could be more double game weeks, if we've got, any postponements, COVID postponements or due to the weather, etc., like we've had in the past. But, again, so these blanks and double game weeks, they're all near the end of the season. So, you need to be patient with your chips. You need to kind of, hold off and, use them during that period, during the double and blank game weeks. If you save your chips and use it during that time, you'll see your rank, kind of shoot up.
I'm going to ask you a really hard question that I didn't prep you for. Erling Haaland, over the first 4 game weeks, he's scored 5 or 6 goals. He's got 2-3 assists. He's absolutely banging them in for fun. On fire. You've got team news. You know he's going to play against Nottingham Forest. Haaland's there. Absolute machine. In any world, do you ever captain him, triple captain him against Forest in a single game week, even if everything's pointing to the fact that he's going to score a hat-trick? Forest have conceded 18 goals in their first 4. It's like, what is going on here? Would you ever do it, or is that very much for you as a rule? double game week?
Yeah, I don't think I'd do it. I mean, I just think with one-off games, we've seen it in the past where, that leading up to that, you'd think, oh yeah, it's a hat trick, but then, he scores like a one-pointer. We've seen it happen so many times. So, yeah, for that reason, I just think, I would wait until, because, I mean, when the doubles come around, John, the likes of City and Liverpool, because they go far in these kind of FA Cup competitions. They usually have the double game weeks and they usually have the big ones. So there's always like a big fixture, for these teams. Like last season we had Salah, who had Norwich and Leeds United at home for his double, and he scored. I can't remember how many points he scored, but it was a lot, because I remember I triple captained him. So I just think something may look really, really kind of attractive, like you've just mentioned, but just kind of think that during the double game weeks you're likely to have a better option during that period.
The other thing is that that whole example was missing is that if he's been on fire like that, played all the minutes in the world, and they're up against a team they're going to trounce anyway, that's probably when Pep would rotate him anyway. But like that's always something you forget about. You think like this guy is going to score 1 million points, when it's actually a case of they're so good that he's going to be rested. But I'll just finish by asking you any quick sort of tips on picking captains. It's not quite a chip, but it's a bonus that we have up our sleeve. Any sort of rules you have around captains? Would you ever captain the defender, for example? Anything you would go by?
To be honest, like John, usually what I do is in terms of when it comes to captains, I keep it really simple, really, really boring. A captain, like the best option, that I think there is, like, for example, game week 1, Mo Salah. I don't really take risks when it comes to captain. I think captain is like a really kind of one of the most important factors in the game, to give us a good rank. Last season I had a really, really good captain score, whereas my overall points weren't as good, and it really kind of saved my season. And that was just captain, the obvious pick each game week, rather than kind of looking for that, little differential, or looking for that kind of moment, So I always say for captains, keep it simple, throughout the season. It may sound boring, but, boring means more points.
No, I completely agree with you. Fair play on that. So everyone, we've told you about all your chips. We've even told you how to captain players. We've talked about the 5 subs. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe and like the video. Abdul, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.